opinion of the cherev, the pada בשלום, which is Torah, is in the way of total peace because you don't engage with the world at all. Tefillah is considered cherev shel shalom, a sword of peace. Over there, we are engaging with the nefesh bahamis, we're davening with the nefesh bahamis, but still in all, it's not in a way that we are actually dealing with the physical things that are managid, that are in opposition. And now he's going to talk about the third thing, which he connected with Gemilas Chasadim. Gemilas Chasadim is an idea of actual milchama, not like Pada B'Shalom or Cherev Shalom, but actually mikravli, that we actually have to deal with a battle. And he's going to explain it in connection with the battle of engaging with the physical world, like in eating and so on. So again, the bottom of the 6th page of the copies, line 21. In addition to what we spoke about, the avodah of Pada B'Shalom through Torah, and the avodah of the Cherev Shel Shalom of Tefillah. In addition to this, there's also an avodah that's actually in the way of a war. For example, like the idea of eating food. Concerning this, the Chazal said, that we eat bread at the edge of the sword, meaning that eating is a process of a war. Now the Rebbe says, what does it have to do with what we're talking about, Gemilas Chasadim? We're talking about over here doing acts of kindness and a more general way, mitzvahs. What's the connection between eating and that? So the Rebbe says, top of page Aleph, and this is also included the idea of doing acts of kindness, shazo klolos in mitzvahs, like we mentioned, the idea of tzedakah, Gemilas Chasadim, is the general concept of mitzvahs is included in that. How come? Because eating includes the fulfilling of the needs of the person, in all of his details, like we see in the Lashon HaPasuk, that a person's entire life is like, use the word basher al lechem shu oichol. Food is considered symbolic of all the person's needs. So expanding that further, what is the need, the true need of a Jewish person? What is the true eating of a Jewish person? That's serving his maker. Like it says, I was created to serve my maker. And how is that done? So there's these 3 processes that we spoke about before. One is Ide Nafshe Lekis. One is a way of serving his maker through, and his needs, that through the Nefesh Lekis, through the godly soul, which is Be'ikar Ide Torah, which is primarily through Torah learning. And also serving Hashem and fulfilling that need. Be'ikr Aidei Tefillah, through his animal soul, is primarily done through davening, like we said yesterday, B'chol Levavcha B'shnei Yitzarecha, that we serve Hashem with both Hayitzah Tov and Yitzhar Hara. V'ad la'avoida b'chelkei ha'olam Aidei Kiyum HaMitzvos, until his avoida in elevating and dealing with his portion, with his part of the world, through the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Since the mitzvahs are connected with physical matters and physical items, tzemer gashmi, you need to make tzitzis from physical wool, and klaf gashmi, use physical parchment for Sefer Torah, for tefillin, for mezuzahs, v'cholo, k'mevur b'tanya b'geras HaKodesh. Like it's explained in Tanya in the Geras HaKodesh, how the mitzvahs is about permeating the physical world, because it needs to elevate the physical and deal with the physical. Therefore, since we are actually engaging with the physical more so than Torah does, and more so even than davening does, there's a need for actual war, which is the reason and the connection with the Maimer Chazal that we said before, that bread we eat at the edge of the sword. Shari tzorich lislabish bagash mishat semer vaklafa chulu shavay mekayim mitzvah, needs to become clothed in the physicality of the wool and the parchment that he's fulfilling the mitzvah with them. Or ubagash mishalam mom shoyismen imshal tzedakah g'mos chasadim, or he needs to engage and become clothed in the physicality of the money that he does with it, a matter of tzedakah, or other types of acts of kindness, like giving free loans and so on. The money that a person uses for tzedakah and other such mitzvahs, that's in Gashmi itself, it's the lowest form of Gashmi. It's inanimate. That's in such a way of descending down below. Here, that is lamata, like the pasuk said, that it says that the difference between ruach ha'adam, the spirit of man, which usually goes on nefshal, rises above, and the spirit of the animals descends below. And if the spirit of the animal descends below, so how much more so things that are lower than the animal kingdom, lower than Chai and lower even than Sameach, but Doimim is for sure descends below. Over there, it's so low that it's not even possible to be in it. The intellectual soul should have a say and should have any effect over there. In Torah, we said the nefshal akis via the nefshal sichlis will explain and bring down the words of Torah to the nefshal bahamis, or nefshal bahamis will come in this battle. But at least there is some type of relationship over there that the nefshal sichlis can communicate. In davening, for sure, there is this intermediary mission of the nefshal sichlis to carry over the ideas and the emotions of the nefshal akis into the world of the nefshal bahamis. But when we're dealing with an inanimate object like the money you give for tzedakah, or the objects that come from the chai, like the wool that comes from a sheep, and the hides that make the parchment that comes from an animal, these things, my nefesh hasichlis cannot bridge the gap between them. So you have a complete contrast, an essential war between the spiritual that we're trying to bring into the physical thing that has no connection with it. So he says in line 19, therefore there's a need for an actual war between the nafshal akis and the yid and whatever he's doing the mitzvah with. So now he's going to go back to what we spoke about earlier. Earlier we asked that seemingly the order of the Maimer Chazal and even the order of the Pasuk seems to be out of order of what a person usually does. It says, whoever's involved in Torah and Gimil's Chasadim and davens with a minyan, I consider it as if he redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations. But that's not the order of a person's day. First he davens, then the Beis HaKnesses, the Beis HaMedrash, he has a shir in learning, and then he involved himself in worldly things, which brings him to the doing of mitzvahs like tzedakah and so on. The tzedakah and learning before davening, that's part of davening, we said, and so on. It's not an entity for itself. So why does the Maimer Chazal, and why does even the pasuk that is the source for this Maimer Chazal hint at Torah first? So we explained that the Torah's Pada B'Shalom, that its complete peace, needs to influence even the level of Gimel Hasadim and davening, that they are not the full peace of Torah. Torah needs to influence and bring its peace into those other things. That's what he's going to explain right now in Oizdal. Line 20, the 7th page of the copies. That's why it says whoever is involved in Torah. The first thing it mentions is Torah, even though Torah is not the first in the order of a person's day. And doing acts of kindness and davening with a minyan. Maybe not Torah, the beginning of these three matters is in the idea of Torah. This capability, this power that every Yid has to fulfill his mission in the world, this happens that while he was still a child in his mother's womb, They taught him the entire Torah. And they make him take an oath that he will be a tzaddik, he won't be a rasha, maybe Rabbeinu Zakim Tchil Sefer Tanya, like the Alter Rebbe brings at the beginning of Tanya. Mashbiyin maloshain shvua. First of all, mashbiyin is in the word oath, but of course, there's something deeper to that, like the Tzemach Tzedek speaks about. He's going to make reference. Why do you need to give it an oath? The Nefesh who wants to do it anyway. Why make it take an oath that it's going to do it? Why does it need to swear that it's going to do it? Why does it need a promise? It wants to do it anyway. Because mashbiyin is also v'gam loshen soiva. It's the same letters. Shin and sin is the same letter. Veis and ayin. Like Tzemach Tzedek explains at length, that the shvua that the nefesh lekis receives while it is in his mother's womb, that is also something that satisfies the nefesh lekis, satiates it with energy and power to be able to deal with all the challenges that the neshama might face in this world. He says in the last line of the page, line 29, after the Yid has studied the entire Torah in his mother's womb, top of page base, take him behold immediately at birth, a zai, maskal hemshech ha'avodosi b'shnei efanim shel shalom. So then it begins, right after, immediately, as soon as he's born. It's probably supposed to read the Kol Torah Kula. They teach him the entire Torah, and then the take of Bivoldai right away, as soon as he's born. So then, Azai Maskal Hemshech Avedose B'Shnei Efanim Decherev Shel Shalom. So then begins his continuation of his avodah, of his sword of peace, Aidei Hatfilah, through davening, and the way of war. I dig Gmils Chasadim, like we said, that Gmils Chasadim is the actual war, not just the sword of peace that davening is, which is Klolos HaMitzvahs. Gmils Chasadim is the general mitzvahs. We said before that's the idea of eating, consuming food, in the way that one eats food at the edge of their sword. Concerning this, it says, בשלום נפשי, he is redeemed in peace, my soul. What is this idea? The novelty over here is through beginning his involvement in Torah, like we said before, he has that learning of Torah even before he heads out into the world. Instead of what could have been idea of battle, the idea of war, like it says in Mikravli. And instead of what could have been the sword of peace, so included in 200 is the 100, meaning that once he has peace, once he has the Torah, it already includes in it the sword of peace of davening and the battle that he has to have with mitzvahs. Since he is involved in Torah in such a manner that the Torah becomes his profession. It's explained in many places. Why does it say, when it speaks about someone that's learning Torah, it uses the word oisik? The loy haloyme Torah doesn't say someone that studies Torah, or Torah, someone that knows Torah. Oisik b'Torah is related to the term asik. Asik means a business, meaning that the Torah is not just something I am reading or learning or knowing. This is something I'm immersed in, like a business. It indicates that the Torah is in such a way, his study of Torah is such a way that his entire interest and focus is in it. What becomes his profession? The Torah becomes his profession, just like a person is entirely involved in his business. Gam b'shar in yoni avoida, from the fact that his profession now becomes Torah, his asik, his business is Torah, so then it comes out and impacts all the other matters of his avodah. But that his davening is impacted by this, and its fulfillment of mitzvahs, which is the idea of eating, that we said Nama Pumbachar Balechel is influenced by this. Where do we see that Torah, for example, influences davening? So he brings the example, again, of a case of Terasim Nase by the Rashbi. Like we find by Rab Shimon ben Yochai and his colleagues, that their Torah study was their profession. And because Torah study was their profession, they did not have an obligation to daven every day. Of course, there's a mitzvah of Kriyat Shema. That's a separate thing, not to be mixed up with the mitzvah of asking our needs, which is davening tefillah in the Lashon Chazal for Shemoneh Esrei. Of course, they read Kriyat Shema morning and night, just like they fulfilled other mitzvahs that are time-oriented. But instead, Shahaya Etzlam Inyan HaTfilah Mizman Lazman, that those colleagues of the Rashbi, they would daven only from time to time. Rav Yehuda, it says Rav Yehuda daven matzli mitlosin yom mitlosin yom. Rav Yehuda would daven once every 30 days. I believe it connects it with his concluding of a certain cycle in his learning. And when he concluded that cycle, and he was ready before he reviewed it again, before he finished Seder Nezikin or something like that, and he was going to go again into it, so then he davened again. If I remember correctly, I might be confusing it with something else. In a similar vein, concerning Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, that by him it says even more so, he would daven like once a year, because it was Torah Siyum Nase. So if it was that way concerning when it comes to davening, that the Torah influenced the davening, and therefore they didn't have to daven as often. And also we find Valachas Kam V'Kam Kiyama mitzvahs, and how much more so that Torah influenced the fulfillment of mitzvahs. Kedisi Birushalmi, like the Yerushalmi asks, V'loi Moed Rab Shimon ben Yochai Shmafsikim Lasses Sukkah V'Lasses Lulav. Does not Rab Shimon ben Yochai hold that we do not stop Torah learning? He did not stop Torah learning to daven, but does not believe that you do not stop Torah learning for Sukkah and Lulav, but those were mitzvahs that he stopped Torah learning for. But other mitzvahs, which were not a time-oriented mitzvah and so on, I think according to one opinion, Krishma was also included that he didn't stop for. I don't remember right now. That was the discussion in the Yerushalmi. The main point is that we see from this that by the Rashbi, Torah also influenced how and when he did mitzvahs. And then it goes on. So what does that mean? Was he missing davening? Chas v'sholom. Was he missing mitzvahs? Also chas v'sholom. It's not possible to say that Reb Shimon ben Yochai, because it was Torah Siyum Nase, he didn't have it. But he had it the way they were part of Torah. But all these things, the mitzvahs that he didn't fulfill because he was sitting and learning Torah the whole time, the davening that he did only from time to time because he was Torah Siyum Nase, because Torah was a profession, it doesn't mean he didn't daven, but the davening was included in his learning. The mitzvah was included in his learning. Similar to the concept that we have, that the Rebbe brings down, that days that we don't say Tachnun, it doesn't mean that Chas v'Sholom we're missing what Tachnun is meant to accomplish. Rather, the holiness of the day itself does the Tachnun, accomplishes what Tachnun does. The same thing that Rashbi, Chas v'Sholom, to say he didn't have certain mitzvahs, or he didn't have the mitzvah of davening, he didn't have the idea of davening. Of course he had it, but his davening and his mitzvahs was the way they were in Torah. So now he's going to give a very down-to-earth example of where we see that in the Torah you can have the other things. K'moy binyan hageshem, just like, for example, through rain, that there are situations where the rain doesn't come down, and in Eretz Yisrael, where it's dependent on rainwater, it's a very severe situation and can lead to drought and a famine and so on. So in general, there's all types of stories in the Gemara, including the famous story of Chayni HaMagel, that he had to make a circle and say, I'm not going to step out of the circle until the rain comes down. Whatever, you need to daven for the rain. So you said, that's the normal thing. That rain is connected to davening. So then he goes on and says in line 27, 26, when the descent of the rain comes about through davening. So there's all types of details involved, how to make sure. So then there had to be a situation where it was so severe that Chayni HaMagel made a circle in the ground and said, I'm not stepping out until the rain comes down. And even after he already did this, we don't know if the rain will come down just droplets, or it'll be so much rain and so much good that will be too much to handle. Like it was a similar story. The Gemara relates a whole story over there that how the rain came down one way and the rain came down a different way. So even after the davening, even after making this whole circle, he still had to bargain with Hashem and still had to say, no, this is not the way the rain should come down. This is too much good. This is too little rain, and so on. And we need to go ahead and we need to measure them out, and we have to make sure that it shouldn't be too much and shouldn't be too little, etc., etc. How come? Why are there all these issues? Why is there all these problems that you need to deal with? Because kivish is a by the avodas atach, and since this is a result of the avodah down here below, which is the concept of tefillah, tefillah is coming molmata l'mayla. We spoke recently about this. Top of page Yud Gimel, the 9th page of the Maimer, is opposed to the descent of rain through the Torah study, like it was by the Rashbi, that we know that by him they came to ask him for rain, and all he did was he learned Torah. He said Torah on the pasuk, behold how good and how pleasant is sitting brothers together. And that Torah that he said, as I'm yad yardu gishmei bracha, and immediately rains of blessing came down. Not like this other situation where it came down too little, it came down too much. He said Torah, and in the Torah there was already included the tefillah. It already had, and in the utmost way, that the brachas, the gsham and the rain came down the best way. Explain at length the difference between the avodah of the Rashbi and the avodah of Chayni HaMagel who made that circle. Both of these things, what the Rashbi did and what Chayni HaMagel did, became part of Torah. And Torah is about a lesson. Though it speaks about matters that took place by these great tzaddikim, so you could say, what type of lesson is it for me? In the Pesach, after it became by them the idea that they opened up, like the expression a lot of times is in the Zohar, he opened it up, meaning that they opened up the channel. So both these type of avodas, both the avodah of the Rashbi, that the tefillah is incorporated in the Torah, that the Torah accomplishes what tefillah has to accomplish, and the avodah of Chayni HaMagel, that he begs Hashem like a child asks, is also applicable by everyone. I explained in many places. Let's finish the Maimer. I say, v'zog, I'm close in the pod of Shalom. That's the general idea. They redeemed in peace, kefishu huetzel gedoyle nisi Yisrael, that this took place through the great ones, the leaders of Klal Yisrael. Idei avedasam lifnei zaboifen, the oisik b'toyrug milchasadim mispalim matzibur, through their avodah prior to this, and the avodah of being involved in Torah and doing acts of kindness and davening with a minyan. Not tzedakah, like it says in the Geras HaKodesh concerning tzedakah, v'hisha amdalanu livtis chayin nafsheinu chulum. That the tzedakah that we're giving is what stood us by to redeem the life of our souls. Pada v'shalom. And similar to this, we find in many letters of the Alter Rebbe. We find by the Nesiim, also by the Rabbeim, also concerning the Avodah in the idea of Torah, in a way of being involved in Torah, top of the last page. So to concerning the Avodah of davening. Okay, do a comment to like it's known the different establishment and things that the Alter Rebbe established about how and what a person has to do and daven with a minyan, and different rules about it, and how you should appoint chazanim and so on. So you see the Rabbeim and the Alter Rebbe specifically had all these different levels of Pada v'Shalom Mikravli covered. In the Pada v'Shalom, because of everything that he had before, the Torah that he had before, the Tefillah that he had before, the Gemils Chasadim, the Tzedakah that he had before, through that was affected afterwards the idea that he was redeemed in peace. After the head and the leaders of Yidden opened up and paved the way, this becomes a directive and a lesson for every single person until the end of all generations. To be involved in Torah and doing acts of kindness and davening with a minyan. My days are Nasim Padam Shalom Nafshi, through that becomes then in peace is redeemed my soul. Shalom B'tach is an ultimate perfection of peace. Like it says, Nasati Shalom Ba'aretz, I will place peace in the land. So a sword will not pass through your land, like we explained previously from Rashi, even a sword of peace. Till it becomes as if he redeemed me and my children from amongst the nations of the world, which is only with a chaf that's only like, because the Geula hasn't come yet. So therefore, it's only like it. Besides Managols, the Mashiach is still already in the time of the end of the Golos, in the heels of Mashiach, before Mashiach comes. And this becomes a close introduction and preface and a vessel for the idea of actually redeeming me and my children from amongst the nations of the world, and the true and complete redemption through Mashiach in our